Can you see my cover slide?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Sean. Hello, everyone. So my name is Justin MacDonald. I'm really grateful for your time and your dedication here on a later evening to be working on your business, and just congratulate you on that. We had a couple different user group options around the globe here to work with, and I wanted the Nova Scotia one because that's I don't know if you can tell or not, but my last name, that's my heritage, came from Scotland through Nova Scotia, so I thought it would be cool to somehow indirectly connect to my history, and that's about the extent of that. But there's a couple things here that I wanted to address with what really, I guess, what uh, gives me any sort of authority to talk to you about copywriting. So I'm the manager of customer experience at Infusionsoft, but previously I was a service architect, and previously before that I was a consultant working with small businesses. I have my own small business too. I use Infusionsoft in it. I've been using Infusionsoft for over 3 years now, and have had tremendous success growing my business with Infusionsoft, as well as some of the tactics and things that that we subscribe to here, as well as some of the copy things here. I also have formal education in English and in writing. I have a journalism background, an educational background, and a writing background too. So that's another I guess, area of my experience that hopefully I can share some things that are relevant here for you today. So at any point, if you've got questions, like Sean said, please just hit it when you have it, and raise your hand, and I would I'd love to make this as interactive as you would like it to be. Otherwise, we will just give you hopefully some great value and some really tactical things and tools, and some both some mindset things that I think will help you, as well as some specific tools that you can just implement immediately to help help you copyright. And I was asking Sean earlier about kind of the nature of the context of the meetings that you guys typically have, and it sounds like this is one of the first non-tool Infusionsoft skill-specific types of sessions that you've had. So I hope you find this really valuable, and I'd love to get some feedback directly from you on how you think this how you think this applies, and if it's valuable. And you can do that to me directly or to Sean directly. So let me start getting right into the content, and then, like I said, there's all kinds of oxygen here, all kinds of space for you to be able to interject questions or comments throughout this. I wanted to frame this up really quickly. Ultimately, this is what business is. This is what running your business is. You have a high-level strategy you're trying to execute. You chain together a multitude of different tactics to try to execute that strategy. And within those tactics, you create specific assets that you chain together to execute that tactic. And then within assets, you have specific types of content. And that's really where today starts to come in is, okay, let's say one of my tactics is some sort of nurture campaign that has emails in it. Well, a single email is actually an asset, and in that email you have different types of content. Primarily, of course, copy is one of the main pieces of content, and you might have some images, you might have some other types of content in there as well. And then, and really only then, do we as business owners decide which tool do I want to execute this content and this asset with, or build this content and this asset. And then we get into what skills do I need to do that. Both what technical skills do I need to use the tool. In this case, let's say you're writing an email in Infusionsoft, there's your tool, Infusionsoft. Now you have the skill of how do I technically use both the campaign builder and then the email builder, for example. That's a skill specific to that tool. Then you also get what we call the creative skill of, in this case, what we're talking about mostly today, which is copywriting. Everybody has the skill to write. It's a matter now of the spectrum of how well you can write to get what you want to be able to get. So I wanted to kind of frame how I see copywriting fitting into the larger business strategy and all the different elements of it, and also how it fits specifically into Infusionsoft or whatever tool it is you're using to host or build or show that copy, which of course can be all kinds of other tools outside of Infusionsoft, like a web page or a landing page, or your specific pages on your website, or your direct mail, or any of those sort of promotional things. So I wanted to frame that up. And as we jump in here, This is kind of the framing that I'd like to set this with, and this is from Steve Zaffron's 3 Laws of Performance. If you haven't read it, it's actually a phenomenal read, especially as a leader in your business, as well as a sales or marketer and business owner just for your business. And that this is the first of those 3 laws. It's how people behave or how people perform correlates to how situations occur to them. And when you accept this truth, it starts to really empower you to understand that people do and believe and act in a way that makes perfect sense to them based on how the world occurs to them. And the second law of performance is how a situation occurs to them arises in language. And so this is where we become empowered as leaders, as business people, as sales and marketers. It's that we can impact how the world occurs to people through language, and copywriting is one of the most powerful media for communicating with language. So that's kind of the chain of influence that I wanted to address, is we can change how our customers or how our prospects, how the world occurs to them through the language that we choose to shape their occurrences. So really it's a matter of why haven't they bought what you offer yet? Well, it hasn't occurred to them that they should, that they need that yet. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the art and science of changing their occurrence so that it makes sense, that it's the logical next step for them to consume or purchase your services or products. And the fancy schmancy definition of copywriting is that copywriting is simply writing to get people to do something that you want them to do. And that is it. You're trying to get someone to do something. And what you're trying to get them to do, you should sincerely believe is the best thing for them, or something that's very valuable and beneficial to them. And so that's really it. And the key word and why I bolded is do. If your copy doesn't inspire or direct action, and that action doesn't have to be to buy, right? It can be just to click this thing. It can just be to learn more so that something happens later. But you need to have a specific outcome in mind. And then if you don't get anything else and you tune out, or you've got other things on your mind and realize, hey, I'll watch the recording later or I won't, this is the most important thing that I can give you today, which is if you get nothing else, make everything in your copy, make everything about your customer. That is the key to what and how you choose to write. So where do we start? This is actually really simple, and every time you start to do anything in any really form of communication, whether you're going to make a video, or whether you're going to speak in person to a group of people, or of course whether you're going to write something copy, is simply ask these 2 questions. Who is my audience, and what is my purpose? That will guide, at its simplest, at its most foundational, that will guide everything that you do from here on out. Who is your audience and who is your purpose? And of course the content changes, and the tone, and then all the other things we're going to talk briefly about in a minute. Those things change based on those answers. Who is your audience and who is your purpose? So a simple formula is your copy times who your audience is should equal the outcome that you desire. And so if we look at what's that formula look like here with some examples. So the question is, what should you write? So the variable, okay, the copy I write. Here's an example for demonstration is, let's say I have accident attorneys in California. That's my audience. Well, knowing that, and knowing that my desired outcome is clicking a link to learn more. That's the simple, most direct outcome that I desire from an email or from a landing page or whatever it may be. That is going to impact and directly guide how I choose to communicate with them. And you see the quote on the right here, what and how you write is shaped for whom you write and what action you want them to take. So with this scenario, accident attorneys in California, for example, my copy is going to be minimal. My call to action will be early. And my voice will be professional because I'm dealing with professionals that are used to a certain type of tone and voice. And my call to action will be direct and benefit focused, which that bullet is probably best practice for any type of person or prospects that you speak with. But I'm going to be very deliberate about that here, understanding what their expectations are of communication, what their time is like, and what matters to them. Okay, and if I were speaking to a different type of prospect, a different type of customer, then I might have a very different approach to how I choose to write that copy. Now, as I said, think of your audience don't write to a group of people. So you realize if you're marketing or if you have a mass media type of copywriting like a web page or a landing page, you realize lots of people hopefully are going to be reading that. But don't write to them like you're writing to a lot of people. As I say here, write to Steve. So there's some key things, and these first 3 bullets are actually really big and really important, but that's not what I'm specifically talking about today. And the first one, though, is know your target market. Know your value proposition and what your unique selling proposition is, what differentiates you, why you exist, and how you serve the people that you serve. And the third one, know your product positioning. So you should know who you are as a company, what your company stands for, and how they serve the market and how they answer those customer problems. But when it comes to product positioning, you should be equally clear and specifically clear on every product that you offer. And if you want to take it one more click, it's getting clear on what product do you offer, what customer pains does it solve, and how would you position that for the different types of customers that have those problems. So some important work to be done so that your content and your copy is even more impactful and relevant, so that you can ultimately get what you want. And at the end of the day, it's about getting them to do something so you can move people towards cash, so you can serve them and grow your business. Now the fourth thing, which is what I want to talk about, and you kind of need those other 3 bullets to get here, is to know your customer avatar. Right? Who is the one person you're writing to? And what is the persona of your target market? Mine for my business, and some of my specific products, is Steve. So write to Steve and write just to Steve and have a one-to-one personal conversation with Steve. And that doesn't mean that you write necessarily in the second person, and it doesn't mean it has to be informal. It just means that it's personal, and that you're thinking, and literally it's just a little mindset. You're literally thinking of whoever your persona is, that avatar. You're literally thinking, how are they thinking? What questions does he have? And so forth. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the formal elements of copywriting and writing, and then show you how they apply to, how you can use these without having to quote unquote be a writer, because copywriting oftentimes is a point of stress. It can be a point of frustration for small businesses and business owners. It can be a hang up. There can be a lack of competence that creates a lack of confidence in copywriting. And of course, you can hire somebody to do this. But I think we all are capable of communicating about the thing that we know best, which is hopefully our business, and then doing so in an authentic way. So I don't think we have to overthink it. And so I want to take some of these formal elements of writing, give you some basic understanding of those things, and then give you some really relevant, practical ways you can apply those things into your writing, whether it's a simple one-off email all the way to a more formalized marketing message in a campaign or on a landing page or so forth. So these are the 6 traits of writing. And the first one is, and actually these aren't in any particular order right now, but first one we're going to talk about here is voice. And ultimately, you want to be yourself or the slightly cooler version of yourself in your voice. And that comes across as that authentic person on the other end of things, that it's not something that's inaccessible. You want to be accessible, or you at least want the message to be accessible. And of course, writing an email that's coming from a sender versus writing content that goes on a web page that doesn't have a specific writer or persona that's there, it still should have voice. Your business should have voice, and then of course individuals in your business should have voice. Second one is content, right? Write really solid content with strong ideas, and most importantly, if it doesn't provide value to your customer somehow, then you probably shouldn't have it in there. So add value no matter what it is that you're doing, and ask, how is this valuable to my customer? And that goes back to that slide I referred to earlier. Focus on your customers at all time. The third one is tone. And it's really simply this: just be appropriate. And that's what is my audience and who's my audience and what is my purpose. Okay, so be appropriate for the audience and the context of the situation you're writing. And kind of like I say here, it's like the soundtrack to a movie scene. If you have a certain scene and you don't have music that enhances that scene, it is definitely off. You want to have appropriate tone that enhances the message you're trying to get across. Because remember, you're trying to get them to do something. So any way you can enhance that, you want to do that. And tone is that mood that you're trying to create in that context. So conventions, this is probably the least sexy of all those things. And at its simplest, I think it's just representing yourself intelligently. If you've got grammatical mistakes, things that are obvious, it immediately discredits you. And while it certainly comes across as authentic, it may not be the authenticity and the representation of yourself or your business that people want. So you want to come across as competent at the very least. And while it's not sexy, it's kind of like just keeping the toilet clean. Imagine a $50 a plate steak restaurant that is real high dollar, high class, but you go in and the bathrooms are kind of disgusting. That ruins the entire experience because of those little details and that sort of maintenance. So having good conventions, it's not something someone says, oh my gosh, your grammar is amazing. That's not the point. Just like no one's going to come out of the bathroom and say, oh my goodness, you have the cleanest toilets I've ever seen. I can't wait to come back to the steakhouse. That's not it at all. They came for the meat. They came for the content and the voice and the environment. But you don't want to spoil that and distract them from that with little bad details in your conventions. And then we get into fluency, which is pretty much how sentences and ideas, how they flow. And so really my best advice is just write like a human. Write like you speak. And don't try to write the way that you learned in 8th grade English class or college or whatever those things are. Remember, audience and purpose. Your audience is not a professor, and the purpose is not to expound on your thesis or something. It's to get someone who get Steve to do something you want that will be valuable to Steve. In an organization, order your ideas logically to create a clear message from start to finish. And that's both idea organization as well as physical spatial organization of how you choose to organize your copy, whether it's paragraph, whether it's bullets, whether it's sidebars, those sorts of things. So again, everything you're doing is trying to enhance your message to get someone to do something specific. So those are the 6 traits there. And really at their simplest, it's just understanding how you can apply those things every time you write anything. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a checklist for you. The way I group those really is the difference between substance and style. So on the left, we've got the frame of the house, if you will, which is the content, the organization, and the conventions, right? It's the stuff that makes the structure. But on the right, you get voice, tone, and fluency, right? So voice, tone, and fluency is, it's flavor, mood, and flow are synonyms for that. And now you get the internal decoration, right? So think of every house in your block, even if they're kind of cookie cutter suburban style homes. Structurally, they're the exact same, built to the same standards and so forth. But the inside is what makes them unique. And how they flow, how the furniture is created, the color patterns, the personal touch that you put on things. So, and this is where we have the most ability to differentiate ourselves. However, imagine a well-decorated home that has all the elegance and all of the personal style, but is built in a really crappy home, right? The walls are leaning or the pipes are leaking and those sorts of things. That now, of course, overrides the quality of all of the flavor that you put in, all the personalization. So it's a balance between these things. But if you're solid on the things on the left, now you've earned the right to up your game, to be more creative, to be more personal, to be more authentic with those things on the right. So it is a matter of balancing all these things. So simple question, if your copy content, right, whatever it is, an email, a landing page, a website, something, a direct mail, whatever that may be, a sign. If your copy were a party, which would it be? And you get to decide that. And of course, we have, visually here a couple different types of parties, or a few different types of parties. And think about it. Depending on the audience and the purpose, you're going to serve different drinks. You're going to serve different type of food. You're going to physically create the atmosphere in a different way because you're trying to create a certain mood or tone. People are going to dress in a different way. The music is going to be different. The location is going to be different, all to support that entire experience. And that's really all you're doing with copy. So is it going to be something that is, informal? Is it going to be something that's more formal? And so again, audience and purpose. Who would want to go to this kegger down on the bottom left versus who's going to be at this black tie event on the bottom right? So it's understanding those things and really just asking yourself those simple questions, right? What's the audience? What's the purpose? And what's the mood I'm going for here? I want to shift gears to another concept, and this is not, I wouldn't call this a tool yet. I would call it a concept, and it's the inverted pyramid concept, and I think this helps strengthen our copywriting. And simply, as you see on the right, it's front loading or top loading your copy with the most important stuff, and then it trickles down into your kind of important stuff and then your least important stuff. And hopefully it seems obvious why one would want to do that, because people stop reading at somewhere along this journey. And so the question on the left, if you see that first bullet point, is if they only read one thing and then check out, will they have enough information to do something next? Now, this organizational technique comes from journalism specifically. And so this is a journalism technique, not a copywriting technique, but I think there's some relevant crossover here. It's asking that top question, right? If they don't keep reading, do they get enough information so that that they can either take action or be interested enough to continue reading your next sentence, or the next time you send an email, or the next time, next web page they click through. And that's what this third bullet talks about, is really each sentence exists to persuade the reader to the next sentence. And it also simply allows you to cut wherever you want. One of the best ways to strengthen your copywriting, I'll say it again, one of the best ways to strengthen your copywriting is to cut it, is to go in and edit it and just cut things out. And Shakespeare said, brevity is the soul of wit. And it's amazing that when you go cut things down and when you eliminate and edit and cut the fat off of the steak, if you will, what you leave, you have less steak, but you have only the richest part of the cut, right? You only have the best meat left over, and it strengthens the content there. So it's something to think about when you're writing, is are you getting to the point, or are you taking people on a long journey that, one of 10 people might enjoy the long rambling journey to get to this climax at the end of it, but what happened to the other 9? And so now there's different tactics, there's different strategic ways to do copy, long sales letters, those sorts of things, but in general, getting to the point is where you want to get. And even in sales, or long sales type of copy, you'll see that it gets to the point and it teases the main idea through the entire time and then continues to swath back over it as it builds. And so remember this, and this will help you approach copy in a very tactical way, that every sentence you write has one single job. It only exists for one thing, and it's to persuade your reader to read the next sentence. Okay, and so it's just like this row of dominoes. If I want the final domino to fall, I've got to set up a whole lot of dominoes in between very deliberately, so that the first domino knocks into the next domino and so forth, to get this chain of action to happen, so that the final domino, which is going to be some sort of purchase, etc., becoming a customer or taking that action, that final domino falls, and I've deliberately created the chain that exists before that domino. So I want to give you some specific takeaway tactics here, some tools. So hopefully some of that mindset stuff is helpful at a high level, and I'm excited to talk more about it if you've got questions. But I want to give you some specific tools here, something you can really take away and use right now. And so people read subject lines to determine what they should delete. That's really the only, and if you think about your own inbox, that's kind of what I do. It's immediately, do I even want to click this to open that? And so when you think about the previous slide about every sentence, every piece of copy exists to get the reader to continue to read to the next piece of copy or next sentence, subject line is the exact same thing. When you really think, when we're talking about emails for a second, even the from address is an important piece of real estate for you to get your audience, your recipient, to open the email or to read the subject line. Think about how many emails you delete without even reading the subject line because you see who it's from and you realize, oh, that's spammy, or that's something I subscribed to a long time ago that I'm not really interested in reading but don't have the time to go unsubscribe from, and so forth. So there's actually multiple things that lead up to even reading the subject line, and then there's a subject line, and that is really important real estate, because if you don't get them into the main body, then of course you don't stand a chance there. So the subject line or the headline is really prime real estate. And so I'm going to give you a specific formula that hopefully will be relevant and helpful for you in creating those. And so here's the formula of one of these types of tools to put in your tool belt, which is the instant clarity headline or subject line. It can go, of course, in a subject line, it can go on a landing page, any sort of call to action. And so here's the formula, and you'll hopefully see a trend with everything we've been talking about previously, about focusing on customer problems, on focusing on your persona, and focusing on on them and not all the different features of what your product or your services are. And so the formula is the end result that the customer wants, and again, we're crafting a sentence here in this formulaic framework. The end result that the customer wants plus a specific period of time Plus, you're addressing any objections or the primary objection that they might have. So look at the example on the right. Have a spotless clean car every week for less than the cost of a tank of gas. And so if you break that down, right, what is the end result a customer wants? Well, I want a spotless clean car. What's the specific time? You can have that every single week. And then what are the possible objections? Well, one of the primary ones would be cost. You know, it's going to be a recurring cost that I just can't justify right now. Well, it's less than the cost of a tank of gas. So if that were true, I fill up gas all the time. So as a consumer, as a prospect, I'm going, well, that's reasonable. That objection's immediately out the window before I even read what's next and all of the features that this service is going to offer. So there's something that uses that instant clarity headline. So what are the benefits of using this type of technique? It tells the audience exactly how your product benefits them, and that's the key. How does it benefit them? Okay, it focuses on the customer, not your product, and how you can kind of bend the rules here. You don't need all three parts of this formula every single time. You can use the first and the last part. You can use the first and the second part, and so forth. But to me, the important piece here is that you're that you're clear rather than clever. It's not. You don't need to be cute here. It's actually just getting to the point and addressing your customer's needs in this call to action here, or this subject line. So here's another one. This is the solution-focused elevator pitch. Right, so this is longer. This wouldn't go in a subject line. This would be something you could use, on a landing page, on a website, on a brochure, those sorts of things. So it's really valuable because it helps you consolidate exactly what your product solves, right? So here's the formula. The product name, and this is actually kind of how you would write it. The product name helps you do blank. Say goodbye to blank and hello to blank, right? Say goodbye to this frustration and hello to this benefit. And then and then here's the top 3 features or benefits for each of those features. So you can see how it wouldn't be a subject line or whatever, it'd be something a little larger. Think about your product page and your about page about your product, something like that. So here's an example. Okay, Made Easy helps you live stress-free in your clean home without lifting a finger. Say goodbye to cleaning, say hello to you time, right? Flexible scheduling to cater to your agenda, all natural cleaning products to help your family and pets, it looks like I got a typo there, help your family and pets keep your family and pets safe and healthy, and white glove inspection so you know that it's clean. So it seems simple enough. Notice that it fits our formula. The product name, in this case, it's the product and the service is the company of Made Easy, a cleaning, residential cleaning service. And what does it help you do? And notice this one doesn't say, and this is where we can start to look at some of the additionally injected pieces of value here. It's not just Made Easy cleans your home, right? It's not Made Easy helps you keep your house clean. That would make sense. But we added some benefits here. It's not just helps you keep a clean home. Why would someone want to keep a clean home? Hold on one sec. Sean, I'm seeing Nigel saying he's having audio issues. I just want to make sure no one else is having audio issues and we can help Nigel out.
Okay, I'll contact him and see what he's there. Okay, just continue.
Okay, great. Anyone else having issues, please let us know. I don't want you to not get what you're looking for. Great, thanks, Pierre. So look at what we did here. Made Easy helps you live stress-free in your clean home without lifting a finger. Now, if you actually back it up, what's my value proposition? What's my target market? Who is my persona? I actually whipped this up today when I was getting ready here, so this is not a real thing. And I thought of the persona I would be writing to would be actually my wife. And so it's not about having a clean home. It's definitely that. It's about the stress involved of not having a clean home and the stress involved of trying to clean your home, and so forth, right? So it's all of that. So really, the benefit is so much more about the stress-free, right? So Made Easy helps you live stress-free. So it's not about keeps your house clean. It's about helps you live stress-free. That's the benefit that's for my customer in your clean home. And so it tells me, of course, what it is. It's helping me clean my home. And then we actually use one of the previous techniques of adding a little bit of the the objection or the added benefit of without lifting a finger. And then we use this second line of say goodbye to cleaning, say hello to you time. So we're playing to what is the value here that we're offering. We're not the clean home is not the value. It's what a clean home enables our persona to have, which is this stress-free life and more you time or whatever that might be, as an example. And then look at the bullets we have here, and notice how we've tailored all of this to our prospect, to our customer. What are some of the main objections? And I thought of who my persona would be, who my avatar would be, and I thought of my wife. And for her, a big stress point is, this is actually, having a cleaning company come is actually an added stress to my life, because now I've got to make sure that I'm home, and that now limits the rest of my day and all those sorts of things. So we said, hey, flexible scheduling that caters to your agenda. So now we've taken that objection off the table. We promise stress-free, so we're actually eliminating that additional element of stress. And then we've got all natural cleaning products to keep your family and pets safe and healthy. So that becomes another, potential objection, is I don't want all these harsh chemicals. This is important to our family, is having natural products or whatever that may be. Okay, so I've spoken to that. And the third one, which to me might be one of the least impactful, is this white glove inspection, so it's clean. But there's the idea of people come in, and do they really clean the way I would want it clean? And maybe that's a better way I could say that here. White glove inspection, so it's as clean as you want it, or as you would as clean as you would clean it, or something like that. But the idea is, notice the focus is on the avatar. The focus is on the benefit, the value for our avatar. Going through this, as you can see, the elevator pitch, if you could say this, and I ask you rhetorically here, can you do this about one of your services or products, about your business in general? Can you get it down into, this is what we do? And now let's apply the inverted pyramid for this for a second. Right, so let's just start cutting from the bottom up. Let's just start cutting this all the way to the top sentence, and you get, made easy helps you live stress-free in your clean home without lifting a finger. End of story. I didn't read anything else. Did I get all the information I needed to get? And I do. I know exactly what Made Easy is about. I know what the benefits are to me. And of course, if I want to read more, which would be the next call to action, I would go and read that. So that's kind of hopefully how you're seeing all of this fit together. Testimonials. And this will be the last little tip or technique that I'll give you here, and then we'll look at our own call to action. So testimonials, again, a really powerful tool you can leverage to get people to do something. This is another way of looking at copywriting. It's not something you're necessarily creating, it's something you're curating and using to persuade people to do something you want them to do. And that social proof and so forth is really powerful. And so it's great to let your customers tell the story and advocate for your company. Your prospects have similar problems of your existing or previous customers, so they're going to relate to that really well. And now you can have your customers, hopefully they're emphatic in what they say about your products. They get to brag about you, so you can remain, humble and objective, right? So really powerful stuff. So what's the formula? Specific end results or benefit that the customer received, plus a specific period of time, plus the feeling or the emotion that created, plus, of course, the person's name and the relevance, and you want to be strategic about why that matters. So here's an example. This is actually a real one. You saw I have a company called Authority Football. That's American football coaching, specifically quarterbacks and some other things. So we wanted to give you a real example, and it's this. Coach Mac has turned my son John into a real quarterback in an amazingly short amount of time, and I'm so proud of the young man he's becoming under Coach Mac's mentorship. So look at the formula. Specific end results. He's turned my son into a real quarterback. Now, is that specific? In this case, that's actually kind of abstract. What is a real quarterback? But that's actually a pretty emphatic and authentic way for this father to say that. So I think that's pretty valuable. And then we have a specific period of time, which is in an amazingly short period of time. I actually cut some things out here. He does talk about in less than a year, and it just didn't fit in my little box, so I edited some things down here. And I'm so proud of the young man he's becoming, and so there's that accomplished feeling. And it also speaks to something far more than the surface value for our customers, which is the skills that we give them. We do that so we can really develop young men, and so there's a piece there that's a great benefit. And then we find out, hey, this is the father of a 14-year-old, so it's not some college quarterback or some bigwig, and that might be important to you. That's kind of that social proof also. This is actually a normal guy that I hope our prospects can relate to. Of, oh man, I've got a 13-year or 14-year-old kid, and I feel the exact same way, so it relates. So some keys are rearrange the testimonial if needed. I cut a bunch of stuff just to get this to fit in a nice, neat place. I like longer testimonials, but I have a mixture of things. So it's just, again, it's up to you. And remember, audience and purpose. Who is your audience and what is your purpose? And that'll help you decide how you want to display and where you want to display and the frequency with which you display your testimonials. So the key here is the second bullet, which is use testimonials deliberately. Use the right testimonial with the right page, in the right context. You cannot have too many of these. Keep collecting them, even if you don't share them all. Just keep collecting them and get as many of them as you can. If you're not collecting testimonials, that's something you can do this week. At the end of our first service that we offer for Authority Football, I'm referring to my small business, we have a follow-up that, an automated follow-up out of Infusionsoft that takes them to a survey that allows us to really understand our customer's journey, how they received and how they felt about their experience and so forth, and then gives an opportunity to get some unstructured feedback, right? Some fill-in-the-blank type of feedback where they tell us what they're thinking, and of course those turn into testimonials. And then I have other opportunities where we're asking and soliciting the same type of feedback throughout their journey as they mature with us. And so solicited means I'm asking for it. Unsolicited means they're just giving it to me. So when I get that email that says, oh my gosh, I just wanted to tell you, this is what I was thinking about you, this is what happened, that's powerful. And usually those come across, you can tell that they're unsolicited in the testimonial themselves. I didn't ask for them, so that's pretty powerful when someone reads that. Social media posts, those are unsolicited, potential testimonials. And if you want more, write them back and say, this is so great, thank you so much. And then my word of best practice is I always ask. In the survey itself, I say, would you like to say something or give us some feedback? And do you give permission for us to use this in our marketing materials? And so forth. And then anytime someone shoots me a text message that says, hey, this was amazing, blah, 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 I'll say that's so great to hear. Of course, talk about the customer, talk about our athlete, and then ask, do you mind if I use that? And of course, they always say yes, or they'll say, man, I want to write you something better, so they'll do that. So use these emails, of course, on your website and so forth, but use them in your marketing emails. You put a sidebar over there, and again, be deliberate about what's in there based on the call to action in that email. Use them on your order forms. Someone's getting ready to buy. Think about how often you, as a customer, bounce off of an order form. An order form, man, you are on third base. You've gotten all the way around, and you are ready to buy, but still, cold feet sets in, something happens, and we want to continue to get people to do what we want them to do. The next step, in this case, put your credit card in and hit submit, pay, right? Finish this transaction. And so, some extra testimonial there that really reassures that purchase and their decision is you want them to buy with confidence, of course, and be really glad that they are. So put a testimonial that actually speaks to the exact thing they're thinking about. Something like, I really wasn't sure how this would work out, but once I did it, it was the best decision I ever made. So you can even talk to that specific moment in time that prospect is having. And use them on your landing pages, of course, the action you want them to take, same type of thing there. Okay. Now here's what I'd like to do, and this is the part that a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to engage, but I'm going to ask you to engage, and you don't all have to engage, but I will, you don't have to share, I should say, but I will ask you. This is my direct call to action to you. I want you to write an instant clarity headline. That was the first one I gave you, and it's this formula. And if you're clear on your target market, the benefits and the value you offer, and so forth, that should be easy for you. So I'd like people to solicit and share this in a minute, but I'm going to give you just a few minutes, and there's the formula. And I want you to compose what's the end result your customer wants, the specific time that would be meaningful for them to get that benefit, and then what's the primary objection they might have there. And so if you haven't done that yet, scratch that down on a piece of paper, type that up in a spreadsheet or on a Word doc or whatever that is, and get those things down. And if it doesn't come to mind right away, then some of those earlier bullet points I talked about with identifying your target market, understanding your value proposition, that's where the real work comes in, so you can be super clear on just simply filling this formula in. So I'm going to give you just a few more moments here to do that, and then I'd love if someone would like to share their copy here, and we can discuss and see how well it fits. So if you'd like to share when you're ready, I think we can raise our hand. I'm not sure. Let's see, this is not a webinar, so.
Yeah, I don't think there's a raise a hand thing. Just put it in the chat.
Yep. And I know sometimes this sort of participation gives people cold sweats back to their primary education, secondary education years, and that's okay. We're not gonna call on you. But if someone would like to share, that'd be a great opportunity to share and possibly critique. Awesome. Someone just submitted. I'll read that in just a moment and give other people an opportunity to share if they want. Let you finish focusing, and we'll take about 15 or 20 seconds to do that. Okay. Great. So Pierre submitted here, and we'll read it. And then, Sean, I think it'd be cool if we unmute Pierre to talk through this in a second about what he's thinking. I'll have some questions for him, and we can all get a feel for how well he's done here. So Pierre said this, right? And let's kind of look at the formula here as it fits. Show off your genealogy research in minutes with our easy charting tool. Okay, excellent. So let's see here. I don't know if
he's unmuted. I just unmuted him.
Okay. Hey, Pierre, how you doing?
You may not have a microphone.
No problem. Pierre, just let me know if you're going to be able to communicate with us, even if it's in a chat. Or if you wanted to submit but you didn't want to talk, that's fine. We can not put you on the spot, and we can give some feedback.
He just says he doesn't have a microphone.
Okay, no problem. So excellent. Thank you for submitting. I'm going to address some of these things and just see how it fits and so forth. If you've got anyone else on the call, if you've got some suggestions about this, some questions about this, or some advice about this, then chat that in, and we can have a discussion here. And we won't do this with any more unless someone wants to, and then we'll start to wrap, and we can take questions if you'd like. But so show off your genealogy research. So what is the end result the customer wants? The way we have it here is show off your genealogy research. So is that the end result a customer would want? So we'll address that in a second. And then you've got specific period of time. So it says show off your genealogy research in minutes, right? And then what's the objection? Well, we have addressing the objection is with our easy charting tool. So let's kind of reverse engineer that. We're assuming that the customer wants to be able to show off his or her genealogy research. That showing off the research is the result, right? The desire that the customer would benefit from. Then we think that it's this period of time, meaning it would be valuable for them to do this in minutes rather than spending a longer period of time to show off that research, right? And then finally, the potential objections, if we reverse engineer this, of it being our easy charting tool, the specific objections would be the complexity to do that with, right? The complexity to research, or specifically with tool, I would assume, to actually learn a new tool to be able to chart that. So I think that's great. It fits the formula really well. And so the questions I would begin to ask are, is the end result that a customer wants with this genealogy? I'm assuming the tool is the charting tool is the actual product, right? And that the result is to be able to use this simple chart to quickly share my research. So that's what I'm understanding from this call to action. If that's not true, let me know, Pierre. Let's see here. All right, cool. So Pierre said, yep, I make genealogy graphics software. And he doesn't know there. Now I'm scrolling down. Sorry, Pierre. So good, and so it sounds like I'm understanding this correctly. You make the genealogy charting tool, right? So the ability to do all the research and then be able to quickly share that. It seems pretty clear there that it's not the process of learning and discovering your genealogy. I'm assuming it's the process of quickly sharing that. And if that is true, then this is super strong, a super strong call to action or instant clarity headline. Anything to add to that, Pierre? Cool. So Pierre says genealogists are always, I'm skipping around here. Let's see. One second. Genealogists are always wanting to share their research, which the little I know about it, that is true, right? The family members I have, they want to share that with other family members. They want to connect with other people that might be, somehow related to them, which is kind of what I was talking about earlier with Nova Scotia and my Scottish heritage, right? So that is a great specific benefit, by the way. And there's the distinction that it's not the research, it's the sharing tool. Excellent. Cool. Perfect. Well, hey, so based on the positive feedback I'm getting from Pierre on my questioning, it sounds like he's got a very specific and accurate, clarity headline. So that's a good thing for an instant clarity headline for it to be really clear. So let's do one more.
Yeah, we have one
This
there
is
from Wanda. Okay.
Great, thank you. And so it's this from Wanda. Get a great night's sleep after applying foot and leg therapy in 20 minutes and cost pennies a day. All right, perfect. So let's look at the formula. End result customer wants great night's sleep after applying foot and leg therapy. Specific period of time in 20 minutes and address the objections, pennies a day. Okay, so it fits the
Wanda's
formula
been
really
unmuted too, so you can talk to her.
Great. Hi, Wanda.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Justin. It's very,
Wonderful.
very interesting.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so so get a great night's sleep after applying foot and leg therapy. So is the end result a customer wants after foot and leg therapy? Is the primary result and benefit that they seek from this service, is it a great night's sleep?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the number one customer problem that you solve, or one of the primary ones you solve, is actually poor sleep, poor sleep cycles, something like that. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
great.
due to restless legs, that kind of thing.
Okay, excellent. So great night's sleep after applying foot and leg therapy. The 20 minutes part, right? What is that? Is that the length of time it takes for the service?
It takes 20 minutes for them to get the benefit.
How often, great, how often would they use this product or service?
Many customers use it every night, sometimes just 2 or 3 times a week, depending on how often they have restless legs, can't sleep.
Excellent. Okay, and then how is it pennies a day? How does that kind of pricing break down?
Okay, it would about 30 cents a day if they used it every day, would last them probably 2 months.
Okay, great. So, so this is excellent. Some ways that potentially we could tighten it up even, so that we talked about sentence fluency earlier. So this one, get a great night's sleep after applying foot and leg therapy in 20 minutes, right? So there's this choppy fluency, so we can smooth this out just a little bit. You talked about restless leg syndrome, you talked about poor night's sleep, and you talked about ultimately they can do this every night. If I don't use this therapy, there's a chance that I'm going to suffer from a restless night's sleep tomorrow night if I don't use the therapy. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm thinking, and I could be wrong, but I'm thinking as a customer, it's not necessarily the 20 minutes that matters to me much. It's the continued night after night quality sleep that I'm going to get. And so I might change the specific period of time. And granted, the product says it's only 20 minutes, so that's a specific period of time that the product is going to work in. But the bigger value for me as a customer actually is that I'm never going to have a restless or sleepless night again due to restless leg leg syndrome or something like that. So maybe that's what we say. Never suffer a poor night's sleep or sleepless night again from your restless leg syndrome or any of those other ailments, something like that. And for just pennies a day or something along those lines. Does that resonate?
Okay. It definitely does. In fact, that's exactly what our customers say.
Well, then there you go. And that's actually, I love that because we talked about, solve your customer's problem. And if you can solve their problem in the words that they choose to use, then your prospects are going to go, yeah, I relate to that. That's exactly it. And you start to use, instead of get a great night's sleep, so get is a verb. What's a more powerful verb instead of get? And one of the ways I was just trying it was never suffer, right? And so you have a much more powerful word that, of course, is an active verb. It's a transitive verb, and it's something they can relate to. I suffered with this. So some word choice stuff that might work in there. And again, if I suffer from sleepless nights every single night, I don't personally, but I bet your customers, they'd spend an hour if it required that to get that therapy so that they could sleep, 8 uninterrupted hours and feel great the next day or something like that. So the 20 minutes isn't actually as valuable as the continued restful nights, essentially for the rest of their life. Does that make sense?
Great. I think I didn't word it properly. It works in 20 minutes or less is meant to say. But irregardless, your whole message, I get it.
Perfect, great. And then only thought when you talk about objections, right? So if price is the primary objection, and Wanda, my last question to you would be: is price the primary objection?
Not at all.
Okay, so what is their primary objection? What's the reason people would benefit from you and your service, but don't buy? What's the primary objection they might have?
In not buying the product or reordering the product, are you saying?
Yeah, correct. And why they wouldn't buy it or reorder it? What's the reason? The number one reason they wouldn't do that?
Availability in their area.
Okay, so that's not their objection. That's your
No.
yeah. Okay.
Yes, you're right.
So it sounds like you got to get that availability, that inventory. So why would someone who suffers from restless leg syndrome and so forth, why would they know that this product will help them, but why would they still not buy? What's the primary reason?
Okay.
What you have here is cost. Is it cost or is it something else?
No, I don't think it's cost. I think it might be believing, and they're in the testimonials.
There you go. So you can support through kind of a couple different techniques, both the clear instant clarity headline, and then the testimonials to prove that. Great. Another thing here is address objections. If they don't believe that it's going to work, or they have doubts about that, then the objection can simply be a guarantee. You're addressing the objection through a guarantee, yes. Guaranteed. And then of course always be good on your guarantee, and always have that guarantee process pre-built, so that when someone says, hey, when they take you up on that, I want my money back or whatever it is, that you can easily fulfill that with a great customer experience.
Exactly.
Thanks, Wanda. Thanks for soliciting
that. We do. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, Sean, we're right at 52 minutes into it, and I prepared for 50 minutes, and so we can, depending on what's next, I can be available for a little bit more, or we can sign off, and you guys can move on with your session.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any questions popping up here. I have written down some things that I want to ask you that I think other people may have been thinking, and kind of get your feedback on that. Now, a lot of businesses, especially around here, are learning the whole life cycle marketing and the copywriting and those kind of things. And one of the easiest things that they do first is they have a newsletter. Either they had one before, or they just say, okay, that's what I'm going to do. What are your thoughts on having a newsletter, and should you do something that's like longer once a month, or kind of more content more frequently in a shorter format?
Great question. I'm going to flip back through my slides real fast to give a visual to support that. Let's see, we'll go to this one. So you start with audience and purpose, right? So who are they, and what is the purpose of, in this case, the single newsletter, whether that's an email or whether that's an attachment, however you deliver that newsletter, whether it's a link to a page that's actually a newsletter, whatever that is. What is the audience, who is the audience, and what is the purpose, okay? And then, so that's the question you ask. And then we get into, if you look at content on this slide, it's, are you adding value? So if you have something that your customers can benefit from, information that they can benefit from, then by all means you can have that regular newsletter. But it has to be valuable for them. It has to be relevant for them. And then you get the ability to decorate that house with your own voice, your own tone, and your own sort of personal style. And that's where kind of personal brand, if you're more of a small business with one person, or you're kind of the voice of the business and they relate to you as a person with your brand, that's a great opportunity for you to develop that. Think of some of the things you subscribe to where the content's valuable, but you also really enjoy this sort of relationship you have with the persona on the other end that's writing them, because you think they're hilarious, or you think they're really insightful, or they're inspirational, whatever that may be, depending on, of course, the context. So that's my primary thing. The frequency with which you communicate with your customers or prospects should be in direct correlation to the value you offer them. So that would be the formula I'd give you. If the more value you have, the more you can contact them. If you don't have a lot of value, then you want to lessen the frequency with which you communicate. Did that start to answer the question, or did it answer the question?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's very valuable. I have one more, and then we'll
Sure.
kind of wrap this up. I know that those people that are familiar with Ryan Dice's stuff, and I know Infusionsoft has inherited a lot of that with his selling invisible selling machine. It's, you know, we try to get a lead magnet on there in lifecycle marketing, getting those prospects into our funnel, educating them about who we are and what we do, and trying to shorten that gap between when they are a prospect to when they're a customer. Now, there's a lot of talk out there about the way you talk to a prospect should be different than the way you talk to a paying customer. What are your thoughts on that? And if that is the case, what are some tips on how do you talk to those different groups differently?
Great. So good question. I've got, I guess, two thoughts on that. The first one is when it comes to the lead magnet, right? The tripwire, the funnel that you're going to move people through. And again, that is bigger dominoes, right? Where every sentence is a domino to move through a single piece of content in a single asset. You chain assets together, right? From a landing page to an email to a thank you page to an email, whatever those things are. You chain those assets together as larger dominoes, right? And then you chain your larger tactics together as even larger dominoes, right? This ad goes to this landing page that captures them, that goes to this, this nurture sequence, that goes to this offer sequence, and so you're seeing how it all relates, which actually goes back to, sure, eventually. I had a lot more slides than I thought in front of me. This kind of contextual picture here of chaining your tactics together, chaining your assets together, and then chaining all of your content together. So understanding how that plays. Now, to your specific question, when it comes to which asset or which tactic do I execute first, my thought is execute the tactic, right? The lead magnet or the offer, whatever that thing is, execute and dial in your tactic that's closest to the cash. Right, so let's say I only have time to do one thing. I have time to, let's say I'm like a coach or some service, and one of my magnets, one of the ways I get someone in my funnel and try to convert them is like a consultation, okay? Something like that. Well, that's the step, that's the domino that is right in front of the cash, the close. So if I can only build one, do I want to build a lead magnet? Do I want to build a white paper that's going to build my list, but then not have anything built to actually convert them? Is that where I spend my time? So that I build a list and then it kind of goes cold. Or do I build the part of the funnel that actually is closest to the cash first, and then build out the bigger funnel backwards, right, as I work away from the cash into those multiple different magnets? So I believe you want to build the funnel that's closest to the cash first, because it's the one that's worth the most money, because if you don't have money, you don't have a business. So I would start there, actually. Now, as we move back and as we build that and we work on our business, we get to those farther out magnets, right? And the idea, just to be clear, the idea is you want to build a complete funnel. So what I'm saying is, where would you start building? And I'm suggesting we actually start with the closer, the smaller end of the funnel, so that I have a small yet complete funnel. If I build a very big opening, all those leads fall out and they don't go anywhere. So that's what I'm suggesting.
Oh, that's
Now,
great. That's great.
okay, good. And the final thing is how you speak to them. Remember the slide, audience and purpose, right? Who am I speaking to, and what is the purpose of why I'm speaking to them? Those early leads, it's like dating, and really your relationship, that one-to-one relationship, it's like dating. And so I'm going to speak to them in a certain way. And as if we decide, hey, meet somebody at a social event or whatever, and decide, hey, we kind of clicked. You're interested, we're interested in each other. Let's get together next week and let's have a date. Well, between that first meeting and that date, you're not going to be radio silent with them. You're excited about the date. You want to nurture them to make sure that they're excited about the date and that you're building up for that. And remember, every domino has a point. And so I'm going to speak now to that person who's expressed interest. I'm going to speak to them with a little bit more intention, a little bit more specificity, and I'm going to nurture that relationship the same way I would if I was going to, send text messages, send them a little Facebook message, call if I was going to, get ready for a date or something. And then once you're dating, you start to talk to that person differently. And then eventually once you're married, you start to talk to that person differently. The only difference is at the end of this game, we want to be, as far as the business analogy here, we want to be polygamous. We want as many customers as we can get, but we want to create that very unique relationship. So you do speak differently because of audience and purpose, and who they are at the time as you nurture that one-to-one relationship.
That's great. Well, I know I found a lot of value in this presentation, and I'm sure everybody who has been in attendance here and got to interact with you has found some value in this. One question that popped up to me was, are these slides available as a slide deck? I know those formulas that you put in there, people were probably writing them down. Is something like that available that we can kind of email out to the people who attended?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to send that over to you so you can distribute.
Excellent. That sounds great. So unless you have anything else
Okay,
to
great.
add,
I appreciate your time, Sean.
hey, no problem. I'm just going to switch it
No,
back.
thanks so much, and will do. Thanks, everyone, and thanks for being, small business owners, and thanks for being Infusionsoft customers. And please let us know how we can help, serve, support, and really empower you. Thanks so much.
Excellent, thank you. So for everybody else who's still here, we're going to go through a couple other things within, I'm just going to mute that there, within our user group meeting here. I did want to mention, I'm not sure if you received an email about this, but it's something that Infusionsoft has come out with this week, and they kind of wanted to reward you guys for being part of these user groups and spending your time with us. So every year, if you're not familiar with this, there is a small business networking, marketing, training, whatever you want to call it, conference down in Arizona called ICON, InfusionCon. And it's all videotaped. All the speakers are videotaped, every session. There's amazing content there. And every year they sell those libraries. And you see here on the screen access to the video library for $195. So what they've made available is that you, as an Infusionsoft user group attendee, can get this for absolutely nothing. And what you need to do is, and I'll email this out, but if you can see the URL, it's attendicon.com/agenda/library. Is you go in there, go to buy now. It's going to take you to Infusionsoft order form. You're going to put in for a promo code UG free. So user group free, hit apply. It's going to take off the $195. Just fill out this information, continue through the process. You'll get a Customer Hub login, and you'll be able to access the entire library from this year's past event. And I strongly suggest you do that. There's an enormous wealth of content in there. So that is for you to enjoy. The other thing that we look to do and is use these user groups as a way to educate each of us about some of the successes we've had, some of the challenges we've had, and answer those questions. Now, I've not received any questions from anybody about things that they're having issues with that we can cover here. But one thing that I make consistent in each of these, even when we did the live events, was we look at what updates have been rolled out by Infusionsoft. We talk about that because a lot of these updates are very impactful for what we're using. And I know prior to this, Nigel just asked, will you email instructions after the session? Yes, I will. I'll send you out the promo code and all that kind of stuff. And when the recording goes online, because we do make it public, that information will be left out of it because we only make this available to those who attended. So those who are catching the replay won't get this unless somebody else shares it with them. So we'll leave that part out of that. So getting back to these updates, they become extremely useful. And some months there are big updates and some months there are smaller updates. One of the things that you may notice is that if your app is chosen as an early rollout for some things, you might notice some changes. One of the biggest ones that has happened here in September in relationship to the campaign builder is you notice that the traffic sources that were originally there, like the blog, the Facebook, like you see here on the screen, are no longer there. You've got on the right-hand side this campaign tools block, and it's got your goal, your sequence, your confirmation, and your notes all in one block. So that's one of the changes there, because we found that most people weren't using these effectively, or maybe there was something here that wasn't as descriptive as it needed to be. So moving forward with that, as you pull those goals in there, it's going to make it require that you name that goal. Because you don't really need to know that, if you do have a web form, you could put on their web form on Facebook page. You don't need to have another icon for that. So it's making it mandatory that you name those goals so that you're not dropping things in there and leaving them with the default naming. One key thing when building all great content and all great campaigns, and a good rule of thumb, and I do this all the time, is anytime you drop in an element to your campaigns, always change the name of it. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to log back in here and show you briefly. what I mean by this. I'm using my Sandbox account, just like we do most times. Just going to go into the campaign builder. We're not going to spend the full 2 hours here. I'm just going to show you the stuff briefly, and then you guys can have the rest of your evening, as Justin was the main attraction for this event. So this will be sample campaign. So as you see here, the box that pops up on the right-hand side, I'm going to pull over a goal. It's going to pop up. It could be a web form. These are all the same. None of these have changed. So we could have this web form on Facebook. Okay, so that's there. Pull over a sequence. Connect it. Before you even go into this, rename it, because I know if you go into it and you come back, you're going to move on to the next stage and you're going to forget to name it. The naming of these have no functional value to your campaigns. It's solely a way for you to know what's in there. And keep this in mind. Make it as descriptive as possible so that if somebody else came into the campaign, maybe it's somebody that works with you or somebody in the future or somebody that's going to help you, that they'd be able to know exactly what that sequence is for without actually going in and trying to figure it out. Okay, so this one could be initial tagging of prospect. Okay, and then all that could do in there is you could put in an apply tag sequence that was there. If it was a tagging and thank you email, put that into the description back here. You can put multiple lines and thank you email. It's going to become extremely helpful down the road as you're starting to build more and more of your campaigns. So you see here the traffic sources have been removed. There's one goal icon. Campaigns created previous to these updates will remain with the original icons and the traffic sources until they are edited or deleted. So if you have campaigns built prior to the September release that have your traffic source icons there, they're not removed until you go in and either delete them, edit them, or update that campaign. The campaign checklist updates. So we know now that when we go and we go through our campaigns and we're like, okay, this is great. I'm just going to mark these ready so we can see this. Make this one ready. I'm going to purposely leave this one unmarked. So when we go and publish this pop-up that's here, this is what we mean by the checklist. This becomes very handy because right now this was not marked ready. So it's telling us here that the element is not marked ready. It's going to do all that due diligence for you. So the initial tagging is not marked ready. You can go ahead and click on it. It takes you right into that one. You can either cancel it, hit publish, go back here and publish the whole thing. It's going to analyze the whole campaign. And you can go ahead and publish that campaign moving forward. This eliminates the fact that you may have an email that's not marked published and it would break the whole campaign. They're not going to get that content. So that's very helpful moving forward. With that, again, the more visual indicators, so the green check mark indicating that it's past the validation, yellow represents a suggestion. So if there's something in there, for example, if you're putting in content, you're not customizing, you're not putting first name merge fields in there, it'll tell you that there's certain emails in there that aren't customized. It's just making suggestions for you. And what I predict here, and it hasn't been said to us, but I can see it getting there, is this is going to become more and more intelligent as it moves forward. There may be suggestions in there for copy. There may be suggestions in there for adding other elements to your campaigns as the months go forward. So they're going to be building on this. We've been asking for this validation feature of Infusionsoft for quite some time. And then obviously some of the bugs have been resolved that are in here. If a tag is used for multiple tags, applied to the goal is deleted, the rest of the tags are removed from that goal, those kind of things. All this is found within your Help Center. If you go in and look at the top, go down to Help, you'll be able to find this update. One of the great things that I've used in the last couple weeks that was in the previous update was the fact that, let's say, for example, we have a campaign that is built off a goal of having a tag applied. Okay, so we're going to call this, and I always do this, apply tag, and then I'll call it, right, what that tag is. Double click on it. Let's just say we probably don't have a newsletter tag in here, but let's just create one. Okay, we're going to create this tag. Again, we can put it in any kind of these subcategories at this point. But let's say, for example, this tag was already applied to contacts in your database. It's an existing tag that is there. And we attach it. We're building a new campaign. When we go ahead and we publish this, it's going to look and it's going to say, hey, you know what? There's already some contacts with this tag on it. Do you want to add them to this campaign and run them through it? Or do you not want to add them to the campaign? Or do you want to see the list and choose who gets added or not? So that's going to be extremely helpful, because there has been some instances prior to this where people have created a new campaign, used a tag that existed, published it, and suddenly there was a group of people that were getting thrown through that campaign unaware to you until somebody raised their hand and said, hey, you know what? I got this email. I wasn't supposed to get it. What does it mean? It was a bit of an annoyance. Now that's fixed, and it's a great tool for that. I'm just going to check here. Any questions came in? No, that's pretty much it. That's what I want to talk about. Justin was the main thing with the copywriting that was helpful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, as soon as we're off this, and I got the recording processed, I'm going to email it out to you. I'm going to email the coupon code. I'm going to email the URL for the video library, so you can get on that if you haven't already done so. So thank you very much. Like I mentioned, every Tuesday, first Tuesday of the month, we're doing these. Please reply to one of the emails, send us back suggestions, any kind of talks you want. It doesn't actually have to be Infusionsoft specific. We are here as small business owners to build our business together and work on different topics that may be helpful to us. So if there's stuffing around accounting, anything like that, maybe we can do one on video, shooting video content. That's something I can do a presentation on. Like I said, we're here to support each other in different topics and move forward. And for anybody that doesn't know, tomorrow morning, I will be a father for the very first time. I'm really excited about that. So my son's going to be born tomorrow. So tonight, it's kind of get the last things done, and tomorrow, enjoy that whole new chapter of my life. So thank you very much, everybody, and we will talk to you again.